Today we are going to be looking at the area of irregular shapes. So the first thing you need to do is copy down the SBI at the top of your math notebook. The student will apply formulas to solve problems involving the area of irregular shapes. You can pause the video here to give yourself more time to write down the SBI. The area of irregular figures. Figures are not always perfect rectangles, triangles, or circles. To find the area of an irregular figure, you may need to break it down into several smaller familiar figures, and then find the area of each smaller figure. So our example here, we need to find the area of the figure. So step one is to identify the smaller figures that make up the larger figure. This figure is made up of two squares, and they've separated them using a thin gray line there. Step 2, find the area of each of the smaller figures. We know the area of a square is the base times the height. The base and the height of the larger square are 10 inches. Substitute the values into the formula, so 10 times 10. The area of the larger square is 100 inches square. The base and height of the smaller square are 5 inches. So again, substitute the values into our formula, base times height equals area. 5 times 5, so the area of the smaller square is 25 inches squared. Step 3, decide how the figures make up the larger figure. Add the area of the smaller figures to find the area of the larger figure. So 100 plus 25 equals 125. So the area of the figure is 125 inches squared. So for the try it here, because this is a more complicated procedure, we're not actually going to use this section of the try it. In your packet that you picked up, you should have several attached sheets that have some charts on them that we're going to fill out to help us go through step by step for each figure so we don't miss any steps and we can figure out if we make a mistake where it is a lot easier. So flip over to that. And for the first one here, for letter A, first thing we're going to do on the top row where it says name is write down the name of the two figures. We have a triangle here and a square. The next step is to write down the formulas for each of those shapes. So you know the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2, and the area of the square is base times height. On the substitution row, we're going to fill in the numbers for each shape for the base and the height. So for the triangle, the base is 4 centimeters across, and we know the height is the same as one side of the square, so it's 5 centimeters. So for the square, we know that both sides that are labeled equal 5, so our base and our height are the same. So we're going to fill that in, 5 times 5. Now we're going to do the work it out, and this is where we're going to work out the process. So for the triangle, we know that 4 times 5 is 20. And it's still over 2 because we have to divide it in half, so we know we get an area of 10. Then for the square, we know 5 times 5 is 25. And then we're just going to bring that down so we can add it to the 10. And we know that 10 plus 25 is 35. So our answer here is 35 centimeters squared, and we're going to write that in the answer block. And it's important we remember to use the unit, and also that we remember to put the little 2 after it to show area. All right, continuing on to B here. If we take a look, we have 2 squares and a rectangle. So we're going to write square plus rectangle in the name line. And then below each one, we're going to write in the formulas. And we know that for square and a rectangle, the formula is area equals base times height. And you can see between each area formula, I'm putting a plus because in the end, we're going to end up adding all three areas together. So now for the substitutions, we're going to go ahead and fill in. So we're going to start with the big square. Each side is 8, so we have 8 times 8. Plus the area of the smaller square whose sides are each 2 inches. So we're going to write 2 times 2. Plus the area of the little rectangle on the bottom there, and that's 4 and 3. So we've got the base and the height for that. Now we're going to do the work it out. We know 8 times 8 is 64. We know 2 times 2 is 4. And we know that 4 times 3 is 12. We know 64 plus 4 is 68. And 68 plus 12 is 80. So we get 80 inches squared. All right, on to letter C here. So if we look, the first thing we need to do is decide what the shapes we have are. So we see we have a triangle and 2 rectangles. So we're going to write that out across the top. Then we're going to write in the formula. So we know area for a triangle is base times height divided by 2. And we know that for a rectangle, it's base times height. So we're going to write that out for all 3 shapes. The next step is to fill in the substitutions. So the triangle, the first thing we have to do is figure out what is the base and what is the height, because they're not labeled. So first thing for the height, if you look at the rectangle to the right, the side is 5 meters. It's the same height as the triangle. It goes from the base to the tip of the triangle. So we know the height is 5 meters. The second part is figuring out what the base is. We know all the way across the bottom of the rectangle is 6 meters. Right? But the triangle doesn't take up the whole base. The little rectangle to the right takes up 2 meters, leaving 4 meters for the base of the triangle, which I'm going to label in the figure here. So we know base times height for the triangle is 4 times 5 divided by 2 for the area. Plus the area of the rectangle to the right, which we know is 2 times 5. Plus the area of the rectangle at the bottom, which we know is a base of 6 and a height of 3. So now we just need to work it out. We know that for the triangle, 4 times 5 is 20. And we know that 20 divided by 2 is 10. Then we do the area for the first rectangle, and that is 2 times 5, so we get 10. And we're going to bring that straight down to add to the 10 from the triangle. Then we're going to add the area for the third rectangle, which is 6 times 3, so we get 18 meters there. And bring that down. So now we can add all 3 areas together. So 10 plus 10 is 20. And then 20 plus 18 is 38. So our answer down here at the bottom is 38 meters squared. All right, now what you need to do is make sure you have filled out everything that we've done and glue it in your math notebook. You should have one chart left. That will be for the Post-it note check when you come into class tomorrow.